Hi there, it's been a little slow, but Lenovo came through for us. Today we have the Lenovo ThinkStation PX, powered by dual Intel Xeon Scalable Gold 5420 Plus CPUs, an NVIDIA RTX A5500 GPU, and 64 gigabytes of memory. I did a full review of the PX a little over a year ago, and you can see that one right here. I'll even call it a hardware overview of the system. If you like our channel, hit that subscribe button. If it's too soon to tell, then let's get to it. As I said, I already took a fairly in-depth look at the Lenovo ThinkStation PX, but we never did benchmark the components. This one does look the same on the outside, but definitely has a different configuration than the one I reviewed a while back. That's the thing. There are so many different ways to configure this system, given the many different options for CPUs, GPUs, memory storage, power, all of those things you can tweak to get the most out of the system on the workloads you're using. This unit came loaded with dual 4th generation Intel Xeon Scalable Gold 5420 Plus CPUs. Each CPU is also in charge of 8 memory module slots that have a 16 gigabyte registered DIMM module in each slot for 256 gigabytes of memory total. The CPUs do have 8-channel memory architecture, so memory speed will peak at 4800 megahertz, assuming of course the CPU supports that value. Spoiler alert! Total power is provided by a single 1850 watt PSU, and this system will take 2 for redundancy. That said, power is also dependent on your power supply, so we may not be getting the full juice on this system given we are plugged into a standard American outlet. We do only have a single GPU, so that does reduce the power needs, given this system can be outfitted with up to 4 double-wide 300 watt GPUs. For the single NVIDIA A5500 GPU installed on this system, we're good to go. Oh, and we do have 3 M.2 drives installed, only one of which will be engaged in this benchmarking adventure. Are you interested in the Lenovo ThinkStation PX? Because if you are, then you can save up to $500 off a system that's listed, or one that you can configure at IT Creations that's valued at $5,000 or more. Yeah, these are top-of-the-line systems and expensive. Fully loaded, it's crazy expensive, so every little bit helps. Anyways, for more information, click that link right there or one in the description below. Oh, and I did add a link if you're interested in the NVIDIA RTX A5500 and one for general selection of NVIDIA and even AMD GPUs. We use Cinebench to test the 5420 Plus CPU. It offers 28 physical cores and 56 virtual threads with a base frequency of 2 GHz and a turbo frequency of 4.1 GHz. There are 3 UltraPath Interconnect 2.0 links, or UPI links, for improved communication between dual processors. It has a thermal design power rating of 205 watts. Memory speed does not quite hit the high mark of 4800 megahertz the modules are capable of because this Gold processor only supports speeds of up to 4400 megahertz. If it were in the Platinum family or a level 6 Gold instead of a level 5 Gold, it could be rated for memory speed of up to 4800 megahertz. With support for 80 PCI lanes apiece, there are 160 lanes available with both processors installed. A new one for this generation, and the 5th generation too, is the plus sign suffix on the end of the processor name. That means it has built-in hardware accelerators. In fact, it has 4 different accelerators enabled to support a number of applications. It has DSA for data streaming applications, IAA, which is Intel's in-memory analytics accelerator. IAA is for database and big data analytics for increased query throughput and a decreased memory footprint that works with a number of database applications. QAT, or Quick Assist technology, is for faster data encryption and compression to improve performance and efficiency in the data center across a number of workloads. And then there's DLB for Dynamic Load Balancer. That one enables more efficient use of CPU cores and threads for better communication across multi-CPU systems. There is one more that is not included, Intel Advanced Matrix Extensions, or Intel AMX. Too bad it's not a credit card. I could use some Amex extensions. What it actually does is accelerate AI capabilities like natural language processing, image recognition, and recommendation systems. That one seems to be in high demand at the moment. Next, we tested the GPU using the 3D Mark application. Granted, it does test more for gaming in DirectX 11 and 12 with or without the Ultimate. Keep in mind we did use a 4K monitor on these tests at 3840 by 2160 pixels just because we typically shoot these videos in 4K. That will definitely affect frame rates, as at lower screen resolutions, you will get higher frame rates. Definitely. That said, this GPU is quite fast. First, a little info on the NVIDIA RTX A5500 GPU. It is a little old, but definitely not that old, having been released in March of 2022. Since then, there is Ada Lovelace architecture and soon to be released Blackwell architecture. This is still the end of 2024. Maybe it's the beginning of 2025 at this point. Editing does take a little time. Anyways, 24 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, DirectX 12 Ultimate, slightly less performance than the GeForce RTX 3090 Ti, which is a gaming GPU. It has a power draw of up to 230 watts, is a double-wide card with a PCI 4x16 interface, and gets power from an 8-pin power connector to the motherboard with an integrated fan for active cooling. I do like the minimalist look of this card. Not like you're even going to see it unless you pop off the side cover on the PX. Let's begin. We tested it on a number of 3D Mark test modules, all of which seem to do pretty much the same thing, but with slight differences. In a nutshell, it tests 3D graphics rendering and CPU workload processing capabilities. But some of the tests take a look at specular rendering of lighting effects and shadows like Port Royale. TimeSpy is more of a generic test. For this example, we ran 5 tests, well, maybe 6. TimeSpy, Speedway, Port Royale, Solar Bay, and Steel Nomad. Steel Nomad has a light version which we ran also, but I suppose that could be 6 or maybe just 5.5. TimeSpy Extreme is for high-end 4K gaming, and I'm not sure why we didn't run that one. However, there's always regrets after I send these systems back. TimeSpy Standard with Graphics Test 1 did run quite well, with fast transitions when the action was intense and high frame rates for 4K. Same with the second test, lighting, shadows, and motion, all very good. Got a score of 7,036 on the GPU and 9,592 on the CPU. As I said, high frame rates at other resolutions for a number of games, as you can see. Battlefield 5 at 1440p Ultra, 65 plus frames per second. Apex Legend at 1080p at up to 140 plus frames, GTA 5 at 1440p Ultra and 45 frames per second, and so on. Here are the full stats with a few temp readings for the CPU and GPU, green and blue lines respectively. It ramped up a bit, but not much. Speedway ran well too, and here's a sample. They always seem to run a bit choppy when it starts out, but high frame rates overall in the 40s. Not crazy frame rates, but definitely a good experience at 4K. Great lighting, and I always enjoy robots arguing and drinking for that matter. In the end, 42 frames per second on average and a score of 4,248. Basic stats again here. As you can see from the memory count, we have all 16 memory modules in play. Temp readings and pretty much everything else was very smooth except the CPU clock frequency. Next up, Port Royale. But first a look at the zombie office workers. Office environments really don't change. Must be Monday. This benchmark really looks at the reflections, specular images, shadows, transparencies, and surfaces both reflective and matte. Graphically, a very interesting module. The customer service reps look somewhat aggressive. Looking at the results, this one, while not very action-packed, did tax the CPU a bit, as you can see with that purple line on the graph. GPU score of 10,326 and frame rates of 48 frames per second, again on our 4K monitor. Same stats as all the other tests, so let's take a look at the specific readings. GPU load is quite high and temps are fairly consistent. On to Solar Bay. This was a new one for us. What the heck? It measures ray tracing for mobile computers, so not really a good measure for this hunk of metal you definitely won't be stuffing in your backpack. The graphics, not as complex, and we are getting some crazy frame rates at up to 297 frames per second. It was interesting though, and here are the stats, but again, for a mobile system, not a under-the-desk tower. But look at those numbers! Lastly, Steel Nomad. Not even going to bother with the light version. This one is for high-end gaming PCs and a basic measure of sustained performance, stability, and reliability. Frame rate's not that high for this one, but there is a lot of action going on, from reflections to steam, dust whirlwinds, and fire, plus strange animal movements, and drunk bar patrons. Reminds me a bit of the Mos Eisley Cantina. Frame rates were all over the place, but produced an average of 41 frames per second. GPU score was at 4060. This module was somewhat taxing, given the frame rates, but you really can't tell looking at the other readings, which seem pretty consistent across the board, maybe with the exception of the steadily rising CPU and GPU temps. Again, those blue and green lines. So there you have it. Can the Lenovo ThinkStation PX game? I do think it's up to the task, even with ECC memory and some gold Intel Xeon scalable processors typically used for servers and professional workstations like the Lenovo PX. That NVIDIA A5500 GPU is no slouch either, even if it is a generation behind at this point, with Ampere having been superseded by Ada Lovelace architecture. If you have any questions, post them in the comment section below. And remember, if you're looking for hardware, check out itcreations.com. Until next time, I'm Doug Stewart with IT Creations. Thanks for watching.